I love servant leadership. And is that something you do within Dot Foods? Is there leadership programs, there mentorship, are there things to help people? Because a lot of people might say, I want to be a servant leader, Dick, but I don't know how to do that. Like I've never had a mentor.
By creating an environment different that's unique for our employees so that we can provide better than most service to our customers and contribute to our industry that we're fortunate to be part of. But what's the hardest to do is to create an environment where they want to come to work, where they wake up in the morning and they look forward to it and they're not anxious to leave. We feel pretty strongly about the fact that culture it's a competitive advantage for us.
Culture is being challenged when times are tough. Everybody's culture is great when you're winning. How's your culture when suddenly you hit a road bump with fill rates or I don't know, there's a product recall? Like that's when the real culture pops up. And I'm sure you'd have a million examples of that over the years.
I'm a proud member of IFDA. I love this industry. We want to serve others. If you really want to serve others and you're good at it, people are going to catch on that really fast. And they're going to want to storm through walls and climb mountains for you because they know that their best interest is in your mind. And we believe that produces better results. There's always going to be a level of curiosity out there on the grass might be greener, and we have that just like other people do. But one of the biggest pieces of evidence that our culture is solid is the people.
Welcome to Crave, the IFDA Podcast. My name is Julien LeBlanc, your host for this series of great conversation with industry and non-industry leaders. The food industry is evolving rapidly, and so are its leadership challenges. Our mission with this IFDA Podcast is to help you stay ahead of the curve with fresh leadership insights and strategies. Today, I'm super excited to have a conversation with Dick Tracy, current CEO of Dot Foods. Dick is the 12th child of Dot's co-founders. He joined the family business full-time in 1991 and served as the president from 2017 to 2023 before becoming CEO. He is on the Dot board of directors and the company's strategic planning committee. And we're very fortunate to have Dick's leadership and experience help guide IFDA's current and future direction. With that said, welcome to Crave, Dick.
Thank you, Julien. Happy to be here. Appreciate you inviting me.
Well, listen, Dick, I'm going to start here. Hopefully I don't make you blush, but I think we need to take compliments as leaders. I had this conversation circled on my calendar. I'm still a bit old school, so it was circle, because every time I hear, first of all, your name, or Dot Foods, it's incredible how literally people's energy changes and how they want to tell me about your culture and how great it is a place to work at, to the point that I think the ultimate compliment is when someone leaves for whatever reason, they go on to different things, how highly they still talk of you and the company as an employer. And I always view that as that's the ultimate compliment. You know, someone that gave you 10 years and for whatever reason goes, but yet talks about Dot like it was yesterday. So I can't even imagine how your current employers or current employees talk about you and the company. And that's what I want to really unpack today together. So why don't we start here? You tell me in your words, what does Dot Foods do, and why are you so proud to be at the helm of Dot Foods in 2026?
Be happy to do that, Julien. First off, we got plenty of time for compliments if you want to keep going on.
Love it.
I've got nothing else going on today, so I appreciate the kind words. We're fortunate. We're blessed to be, I'm the youngest of the second generation of Dot. Mom and Dad started it, like you mentioned it. It's in 1960. So we started out selling to food, people who process food, and mostly dairy manufacturers. We eventually evolved into other segments, and food service, which is the majority of this audience. We got in there in the 70s. And so that's the biggest piece of our business now. And it's what we know the best. So we're excited to be part of the industry. It's a fantastic industry. I think we're going to talk about that a little bit. We think that we provide a valuable service, to our customers. We've got about 15 manufacturer partners that, we don't make anything, so we need them. We got to have something to sell, and we help them get their smallest, most costly orders from usually their plant to the last mile distributor, who is our customer. And so we think we take out complexity in that less than truckload supply chain. We can lower lead times. We can ultimately improve service. And in today's day and age, it's most important to help our customers be able to react quicker to fluctuating demand and changes, and the ever growing appetite for consumers as it relates to choice. So we've got 13 facilities in the U.S. We got a couple in Canada. We operate our own fleet. So we're part trucking company, over the road trucking company. And so we've got a couple thousand trucks and 3,000 trailers or so. And that's kind of the secret sauce to our business model, is operating our own fleet so we can make sure that we show up on time with a short lead time.
What are some of the things that make you proud and of being the leader today of this great business?
I'm biased here and about what I'm about ready to say, but I believe strongly that privately held, professionally run businesses are critical to the success of our country. So are public, so are private equity. I mean, we need it all. But I think we need a healthy group of independently owned businesses, and we're proud to be one. And we're committed to doing that for the long term. So I'm the youngest of 12, as you said. There's 19 years between the oldest and the youngest. So there's really two generations within that generation. What we call our third generation, there's 47 of them, and we've got about 10 of them involved in the business. Working the other 37, we're doing our best to make sure that they're educated shareholders, so that they're all committed to this. And the business it's been a blessing because it keeps us together. So we there's no doubt that we're closer as a family because we have this common interest in Dot Foods, and we believe in our business model. We're free market people. We want to make a good return on our investment, but we also think we're doing something different by creating an environment that's different, that's unique for our employees, so that we can provide better than most service to our customers and contribute to our industry that we're fortunate to be part of.
I've got a great visual of this table that never ends with all the family members around, right? Cutting bread, telling stories.
Yeah, it's great most of the time. Every now and then, the conversation evolves. It almost feels like a board meeting.
I love it.
So it's hard to get away from it sometimes, but I would rather have that than not.
So I think this is a great jumping off point because you touched on a few things. In preparation for a call today, in my travels, I asked a few people that engage or interact with your company, tell me about Dot Foods. And here are some of the words that jump out, which won't be a surprise, I don't think. But, culture. Man, what a culture. Technology. Good people, prepared to help you go the extra mile. So it's interesting in the spirit of last mile business. So why don't we start with culture? Because I know that's something that's super important to you. Obviously, I've read stuff you've talked about. I've seen you in podcasts. So let's start there. Let's talk about your culture and what are some of your thoughts around culture in general?
We obviously think it's really important. And by the way, I believe our, industries have their own cultures to a certain extent. We're starting to get involved in other industries outside of food. So we're exposed to the good and the bad and the difference in others. So I love the food away from home business. It's a fantastic industry to be in. And we believe that it's extremely important within our four walls to have a people first, unique culture, because the reality is any company can pay an employee at a market rate. Any company can provide benefits. I mean, that's a decision that everybody can make. But what's the hardest to do is to create an environment where they want to come to work, where they wake up in the morning and they look forward to it, and they're not anxious to leave. Now, of course, we're not perfect. We make mistakes all the time, but we feel pretty strongly about the fact that culture it's a competitive advantage for us. And why do we think that? Well, there's a couple of reasons, but one of them is we have a lot of employees who leave and come back. Now, I think every business has that. Most of us call them boomerangs. There's always going to be a level of curiosity out there on the grass might be greener, and we have that just like other people do. But one of the biggest pieces of evidence that our culture is is solid is the people that come back. That is always the reason they come back. It's never, oh man, I left for less money. Oh, I left because I didn't care about healthcare. No, it's always, I came back because I'm treated differently here. And if you were to ask me to define culture, that's how I would define it.
And if I look at my formative years where I worked for a company 7 years, left for a couple of years, came back to that company for 7 years, left, and now I'm a consultant to that company. So it's like, if you buy into culture, as you know, I have the tattoo. I always joke, I literally have the tattoo. And that's how proud I am of the work that I've done with that company. Hey, tell me a little bit about culture, because culture is something that you can design, but culture can evolve over time as well. And have you seen it even in your transition from president to CEO? Because obviously there would have been a culture at play. Is there things that that have evolved, whether it was by design or just organically because of what we survived during the pandemic, for instance?
Maintaining a healthy culture is really hard. And what company out there, when you're interviewing with them, especially, doesn't say they have a great culture? I mean, that's everybody says that, but not everybody means it, in my opinion. And it got harder coming out of the pandemic to do the things necessary to keep it healthy. Employee preferences change. We all went through a desire to work from home more, as an example. Now, we were a hybrid before with some of our jobs, hybrid before the pandemic hit, and we continue to be hybrid afterward. But that's one example where I think the business world, regardless of industry, dealt with changing perceptions there. And so we believe that not only do you have to say that culture is important, but you have to do things that keep you current, and things like measurement. Many companies have an employee survey they do, and we as well. And we occasionally modify how that works. We will modify the number of questions in the provider, but one thing we don't modify is a consistent list of questions that give us a read on our culture. And it's like an index for us.
Yep.
The other things that we do is we'll do roundtables, because it's one thing for someone to fill out a survey, but not everybody fills out a survey. Sometimes you got to go sit down with them and you got to ask, hey, what are we doing? Or what are we doing good? What are we doing bad? What do we need to change? And those roundtables have been a really good improvement to our ability to ultimately, what we're getting at is listen to our employees. Because they'll tell you, they'll almost always tell you what you need to change to improve. And that's the hardest part of maintaining a healthy culture, in my opinion, is not just listening, but it's acting.
I don't know if you were planning on writing a book on culture, but I can tell you what your first 3 chapters could be. The first one could be, values is not what you say, it's what you do. Because I see a lot of organizations I go in, man, the walls are beautifully painted with all these values and these great posters. And you talk to an employee and they're like, actually, that's not our values. Our values is what we do here. The second chapter could be, we're going to meet people where they need to be met. Because I love that example. A lot of companies, they'll do the surveys, but they won't do the roundtables. And guess what? They're losing out probably 20% of the people that actually can have influence and help you impact culture and maintain culture. The third chapter, or maybe the last chapter in the book, is don't give up. Because I think culture is being challenged when times are tough. Everybody's culture is great when you're winning. How's your culture when suddenly you hit a road bump with fill rates, or I don't know, there's a product recall? That's when the real culture pops up. And I'm sure you'd have a million examples of that over the years as well.
I'm fortunate to get a lot of tours of facilities, both our customers, our manufacturers. I'm on boards. I've been on boards of other, companies and other industries. And I tell people all the time, the best way to observe everything that you described, that ultimately wraps up to what a company's culture, what it's like to work there, is to observe how people treat each other. Mm-hmm. And now I'm not trying to say I'm clandestine and I'm spying, but when someone's walking you around a facility, you can observe interactions from other employees. And to me, that's the best indicator and tells you about the health of that culture. And I do it in our our company too, because I try to get out and walk around and talk to people, and you'll see if people are welcoming, if they're curious, if they're supportive, if and it's not hard to find out if they're dependable. Meaning, do they do what they say they're going to do? And so to me, I think that's a healthy thing for us all to keep our eye on, because it matters. It helps attract people, and most importantly, it helps retain them. Because the one thing that we can't all forget is that we are in a talent competition. So they don't have to work for us. Even in a down economy, most people still have a job, and there's other jobs to find. So that's why we think it's so important.
I used to have a boss, and I love what he'd say. He'd say, look, before we hire this person, let's spend some time with them. Maybe if they like to play golf, we'll go play golf, or we'll have dinner. And let's just watch how they treat people, but not the general manager of the golf club, the person that was serving him a drink, or the person that was helping. And because in our business, in the restaurant business, how are they treating the waiter, the waitresses? How are they treating the bar staff? Because that's really who they are at the end of the day. That's how they treat people.
And that's why servant leadership is a big deal to us. We try to train our leaders on it. If you take that mindset, in our opinion, then you're going to treat everyone the same, and your best interest is fulfilled by that other person being successful, and you're willing to share that credit. And so that's the way I would, that's the other thing I would throw in here as we talk about all this, is that if you take a servant leader mindset in an overall approach, it's just going to be easier to make all of this happen, and you're going to be better off for it. And that's what we try to do at Dot.
Is that something you do within Dot Foods? Is there leadership programs, is there mentorship, are there things to help people? Because a lot of people might say, I want to be a servant leader, Dick, but I don't know how to do that. Like I've never had a mentor. I'd just like to explore that a bit.
We have multiple ways we train our people internally. To say that we've got it all figured out and we're always consistent, of course that wouldn't be true. But again, we try, and we try to develop processes, and we have a department that helps our managers do some of this. It's like big all company training. We're going to have a group of people that lead that. But then we also try to empower and teach our managers to do a lot of this on their own, which, when in reality, that's where the majority of someone's development is going to occur. So we have a mentor program. We have a development plan process that everybody has to follow. Those things all add up to helping develop that mindset of, we want to serve others. If you really want to serve others and you're good at it, people are going to catch on that really fast. And they're going to want to storm through walls and climb mountains for you, because they know that their best interest is in your mind. And we believe that produces better results. So that's why we try to get all of our leaders with that mindset.
Started by saying, hey, I think the ultimate compliment is if someone leaves, comes back, or even if they don't come back, but they tell their friends this is a place you want to work. I think probably the second biggest compliment is people that get a pretty darn good look under the tent, or under the peak under the tent, which is your partners. Because your business exists because of partners. And it's amazing when I talk to some of your partners, how they just have, again, they light up, their body language, their energy changes when they talk about you and your team. What does it take to have a great partnership? Maybe even stories, or let's talk about partnerships.
So we created a brand promise many years ago to kind of hold ourselves accountable here. And it's the experience that we want everyone to have with us, regardless if you work for us or whether you're a business partner to us or you're a community where we have a facility. But you'll see it on the side of every one of our trucks. That's how strongly we feel about this brand promise. It's trusted values, innovative solutions, and shared growth. And the way I would describe that and translate that into partnerships is that, we think any relationship is a two-way street. It doesn't matter what it is. You both have to be happy with it. Otherwise, it's not sustainable, right? So if we trust each other, we're going to work closer together to solve problems and come up with solutions that hopefully lead to better outcomes for us both, and we can share in that success. We can share in that growth. So that was kind of the roots of where that brand promise came from, and it's a good reminder to us all the time. That's how we ought to behave.
Right.
So someone walks away from a relationship or an experience with Dot. Those are the types of things we want them to think about.
And just for our listeners, right? Our mission is to significantly contribute to the success of our business partners. It's who we are as a company, and it is what we stand for. I mean, look, again, not saying you're perfect every time, but when you have that on the front page of your website, that means that drives the culture to keep that in mind and to always thrive or strive towards that destination, that mission.
You said it better than I could, Julien. There's nothing else I can add to that. I need you to get on a few meetings with me here over the next couple of days.
There you go. We'll do that. Like you like to visit, I like to visit as well. So I'll take that as an invite. So because you get a unique vantage point as well, yes, obviously you're proud of this business and you're the leader, but you do stuff outside of Dot Foods. You're involved in projects. You're involved on board work. If you were to define just a partnership in general, are there a couple of attributes that for you are non-negotiable? Like I'll just give you one, like transparency. Because if I'm not transparent with you, how are we going to build trust? Or I don't know, do what you say you're going to do. Are there things for you that jump out? And to my listeners, these are not prepared questions. So we're getting Dick raw version of a definition of partnership here. So are there attributes that for you are non-negotiables or that you look for in a partnership?
You know what I'm about ready to say. It takes a little while to understand it, but trust. But it is harder to get at those good financial outcomes when you don't trust each other. If I can't trust you and me sharing some confidential information that makes me vulnerable, and you do the same with me, then we're not going to get very far. But when that trust exists, and when that's the foundation, it's just easier to brainstorm, to understand each other's capabilities, and to figure out where the common ground is, and where I can help you do something better, and vice versa. That will ultimately lead to the economic equation that we both like.
I read something the other day and they said, if you look at like Harvard Business Review, you can get a feel of the themes that are in people's minds in terms of leadership, because it's kind of like the current energy. And I read something that said the words right now that are really coming to play is authenticity. So be yourself, because no one wants to do business with someone that I have no idea who Dick is or who Julien is, because that's hard. Be vulnerable. It's okay to admit when you're wrong. Own it. And then ultimately, understand the numbers, understand the business. Like if you do these things, who would not want to partner with someone that brings these attributes that you just laid out there? And with the goal of playing the long game. So I can build capabilities, capacities, invest, knowing that, Dot Food and I are going to do business for a long time if you trust me, ultimately.
And the only thing I would pile on what you just said, which I agree with, is the long game is really matter. And it goes back to my speech I gave earlier about privately owned, professionally run businesses. We have the ability to make longer term bets, and to be a little bit more patient with the investments related to that. Now, sometimes we hang on a little too long. Sometimes we're not as good as other ownership structures are, and cutting the cord. But I'd rather have that luxury, the ability to make that decision than not, because there's been many opportunities that turned into really good pieces of business for us that if we gave up on them too early, they wouldn't be around.
We're playing an infinite game from the standpoint of you might have quarterly pressures because you want to deliver to your family, the shareholders, you want to, make sure that people have their livelihood. But if you're playing a long game, it's a very different game than if you're just trying to win a quarter or fight the pressures that Wall Street has on a business, where you're doing the wrong things a lot of times for the business and the people and your partners. So I love this idea of this infinite game, Dick, where we're playing, and you want to win along the way. You want to hit your markers, I guess.
Yeah, and when you think that way, you'll be a little more patient with your strategy. And obviously, you need to you need to be nimble and adapt and improvise and all those types of things. But I would tell you my own personal opinion in the many decades I've worked in this industry is that I see what I believe more mistakes when people are shifting their strategy too often.
Yeah.
The new CEO comes in or the new division head or what have you, and they're changing everything up and including the people that you're dealing with. And sometimes I just think companies move a little too fast on that front. Sometimes they don't move fast enough, but I see it more on where they, the former.
I think it's a good place now to talk technology because, look, let's assume we've got a phenomenal culture. We're playing the infinite game. We're servant leaders. We've got great partners. Now we've got this thing called technology kind of on steroids if you understand how to use it. And I know that Dot Foods is bleeding edge in a few areas, so you're probably doing some stuff that maybe some of our listeners, won't have the ability to do necessarily in their business. But I'd love to understand a bit how you view technology today, tomorrow.
Typically, distribution margins are some of the lowest in the business world. And so we don't have the luxury of being able to go buy a bunch of shiny toys and we just don't have the leeway there. The second thing is we have big physical assets that we have to manage that are hard to change, on a dime. So, and that describes Dot. We're limited to some of those things. So that said, though, there are many opportunities we believe that we can embrace technology to serve our customers better. And we've always tried to think that way. And so back, many years ago, we believe we were one of the first, at least in our stratosphere, that embraced e-commerce tools. And we were one of the first to use EDI in a big way. Still probably use it more than a lot of companies out there. And so we have some examples of where we've been technological leaders, but we've also got many areas of our business where we were slow. Right. And we had paper involved in some process for way too long. But overall, we feel pretty good about the journey that we've been on. That game has changed here recently with artificial intelligence. It seems like that's all anybody wants to talk about these days, which is appropriate most of the time. But as I talked a little bit earlier about the benefits of being patient, this is an area where most of us, we can't be very patient right now. At least in our view, we think that it's really important to lean in to the new technology that's available and to experiment. And what I mean by experiment is testing things that haven't surfaced in the past, that you're attacking a problem within your business. And, some of it's going to work and some of it's not. And in our case, we're trying to chase a lot of different things. And we're trying to celebrate when we fail, because even when we fail, that's going to get us a little closer to a success.
And I think what I'm kind of hearing there, we started with mindset and culture. It sounds like what you're trying to do there is just have a culture that doesn't fear technology, that understands technology, plays with it, and then when it's ready, because to your point, you've got big assets, then you start deploying. So you might not be bleeding edge, but you're definitely cutting edge in terms of experimenting based on what I'm hearing here, Dick.
Well, we're trying, Julien. It goes back to trust, though, because many of our employees tell us that they're worried about what I just said. They're worried about the baggage associated with them failing, and that coming up in the future when they're trying to get a promotion or something like that. So we've got to get better in how we get them comfortable with that. But we are sincere when we say we want you to lean in, find a problem. And that's not very hard to do, by the way. Most people can rattle off about 5 or 10 problems that they see every day, and get creative. And we're gonna make some bets here. Most of them, by the way, are small and medium. They're not gazillions of dollars where we're investing in a system that takes a year. Some of these tests with sometimes they're startup companies. You can get those going in a few months. And you can find out whether you fail or not. And then if you fail, you move on to the next thing. If you don't, then expand it. Move it on beyond the test phase to something else. And so we've got examples of all of that in our business.
What excites you about the industry? So you've been in it. It's been great to you. It's been great to your family. We've talked about so many different things here today in this conversation, but what still excites you about the industry and where it's going?
Well, Julien, I haven't been called young and I don't remember how long, so I need to hang out with you a little bit more often. But thank you for saying that, even though it's not completely true.
It's 100% true. I wouldn't say it, Dick. I wouldn't say it.
I love this industry. I'm biased. I grew up here. I've never worked anywhere else other than part-time jobs in college, and there's fantastic careers in food service, and I know many of the listeners have one.
Yeah.
But whether you're in technology, whether you're in sales, or whether you're in an operational job, that's moving cases or maintaining a building or fixing equipment, or we've got it all. And so I'm very bullish about where all this is going. And one thing that people are going to always have to do, no matter what, is eat.
So as we're winding this down, if you can only describe your leadership in one word, and I realize that's a big one, but I've been testing leaders that I interview. What word would you choose, Dick, to describe your leadership? Who you try to be doesn't mean you're that perfect every day, obviously. And why are you picking that word?
I would probably choose Matchmaker, just because I'm never the smartest person in the room, and seldom do I have all the necessary experience needed to tackle whatever problem or opportunity that we're chasing. But I think I'm fairly good at identifying the people that are and putting them in the right seats on the bus or the right spot on the team, however you want to describe that. And taking risk, especially early in some people's careers, to identify that's rewarding to me. I get excited about doing that. We would not have produced the success at DOT if we didn't have someone playing Matchmaker for us. And fortunately for me, I've had leaders that came before me, some of them family members, some of them not, that taught me how to do that. Today technology is it helps us a lot, and there are so many good things compared to decades ago. But I also think it hurts us in a couple areas, and one of them is the news that we consume. The bubbles that we sometimes create for ourselves that closes us off to other ways of thinking. And if you just read news online, or you're watching your favorite cable show, you'll walk away thinking that this is the worst it's ever been. And in some cases they're motivated to get you to think that way, from a behavioral perspective. But the reality is, we live in one of the best times to ever be a human being in the history of the world. Our standard of living, the opportunities that we have, the change that's occurring that is, sure, there's some risk associated with it, is probably going to lead to improving those things even more. And if you look back to previous generations, I mean, think about, living in the 1930s, in the late 20s. You're coming out of a depression. You're going into World War II. Those are some really challenging times. So that's the final thing I would share. As a leader, man, it is easy to get wrapped up in negativity and all the stuff. But sometimes you got to stop back, turn the news off, and think about the people that you're serving. And if you do that, I personally believe that we're all going to be in a better spot.
Wow. What a great way to finish. One of the questions that I love asking myself and others from time to time is, would you want to be led by yourself? Would you do business with yourself? And what you just challenged us or imparted wisdom there is, if we're not going to be positive, if we're not going to focus on things we can control, and if we're going to go down these rabbit holes, to your point, that we only look at the world through a certain lens, then it's going to be hard to lead. It's going to be hard to inspire people. And we are very fortunate. I could not agree anymore with that. We live in an amazing time with some challenges, but every decade there's challenges. If you look at history, that's humanity, isn't it? So with that said, Dick, first of all, thank you for this generosity of time, your gift of leadership, what you're doing for the IFTA community, for the industry. And to our listeners, I'm going to congratulate you once more for investing an hour in your time and your personal development. And take some of these nuggets of information and explore them, bring them to your teams. And with that said, I really believe that together's better, and go get them.
Thank you, Julien.